Back here at home tonight and to your money. Some of the country's most familiar stores closing hundreds of locations and cutting thousands of jobs tonight. Take a look at the map. Sears shutting down 150 of their Sears and Kmart stores coast to coast, everywhere where there's a logo. And then we add on tonight where Macy's is shuttering dozens of their department stores. Tonight, ABC's Eva Pilgrim with the reasons why.
Tonight, massive cutbacks for two of America's iconic department stores. Sears, part of the American fabric for decades.
Sears, where America shops.
Those holiday wish books, a family favorite. Tonight, Sears closing 150 stores, 108 of them Kmart's. There will be layoffs, but the company not releasing those numbers. Sears also selling their Craftsman tool business for $900 million to help pay off mounting debt. Macy's getting hit too, shutting down 68 stores, 6,200 jobs gone.
We're definitely going to see more stores close. This is really just the beginning.
Sears reporting holiday sales down 12% this year, while overall internet sales are booming. $91 billion in profits this season, up 11%. David, both Sears and Macy's reps say the savings from the upcoming cuts will go to help boost online sales. Macy's is also planning to add an additional 50 discount stores. David?
Eva Pilgrim with us tonight.
The cost of minimum wage hikes. 19 states, including Colorado, California, Connecticut, increasing their minimum wages at the start of the new year. And our next guest warns more cities may do the same in a Wall Street Journal op-ed called The Fight for 15. Coming to a city hall near you. Let's bring in Michael Saltzman, Employment Policies Institute Research Director. Michael, I've said this all along. Once a few of the cities started passing that $15 minimum wage, it was San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York City, that was going to become kind of the standard for the left. What is it doing to restaurants in those places where we've seen it so far?
Well, what it's doing is creating a tremendous amount of hardship, and it's actually leaving quite a bit of carnage in its wake. We see now over 30 cities and municipalities have their own local minimum wage requirements. Some in California as high as $13 an hour right now. You compare that to the historical minimum wage standard of about $7.40. So it's quite high, and what we're seeing is customers aren't necessarily willing to pay for it. Even in wealthier markets, like in the Bay Area, where I think people assumed that a higher minimum wage was more palatable. At the end of the year, some newspapers have described it as a death march. There have been so many restaurant closures out there. And so I think what some business owners are able to do is adapt and do things like automate. But for other business owners, especially the smaller guys, what it means is that their business model just doesn't work anymore.
Vice President-elect Mike Pence went to Capitol Hill to huddle with GOP leaders over Obamacare strategy.
The first order of business is to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Even the president made a rare visit to Capitol Hill to fire up his party to defend his signature health care law.
Democrats don't have the votes to block a repeal, so they're trying to rally public opinion. Their main charge that a repeal would lead to health care chaos.
They have no idea what to put in place of the Affordable Care Act. For years, they've talked about repeal, but for 5 years now, they have had nothing to put in its place.
We have a plan to replace it. We have plenty of ideas to replace it, and you'll see as the weeks and months unfold what we're talking about.
And the president-elect weighed in via Twitter, saying Republicans must be careful in that the Dems own the failed Obamacare disaster with its poor coverage and massive premium increase, like the 116% hike in Arizona. Also, deductibles are so high that it is practically useless. Don't let the Schumer clowns out of this web.
Swipe to find out how to make a tourniquet or treat a burn. A new app launched by senior British military and civilian medics aims to tackle one of the big problems following a terrorist attack: time. The creators are concerned that people caught up in an attack may not be clear on how to respond in the immediate aftermath, when every second counts.
We won't be able to save everybody with citizen aid. Some people will be too seriously injured. But what we can do by empowering the public with simple skills and knowledge is prevent avoidable deaths.
Last year in London, police and emergency services carried out a training exercise simulating a terrorist attack. But now the public are being encouraged to undertake digital training of their own. Drawing on skills acquired in Iraq and Afghanistan, the app provides a simple guide to saving lives before professional help arrives, with the emphasis on reacting to bombings, knifings and shootings.
Bring in Michael Oren. He's the former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to the program.
Always good to be with you, Stuart. Hi.
Sir, this is a very troubling trend here. First, the UN vote, and now this blacklist of Israeli companies that actually do business and employ people there. Where's this going? Is this all part of a much greater boycott of Israel?
Of course it is. That's just what the UN vote was about. The UN decided that Israel was illegally occupying its own homeland in Judea and Samaria, that over 500,000 Israeli citizens were violators of international law, that the holiest places in Judaism, including the Western Wall, are legally occupied territory. Now, the framers of this resolution knew that when the UN adopted it, that those framers would then run to international courts, international bodies, and try to get us boycotted and sanctioned.
Now,
and they're not doing this to get a better two-state solution. They're doing this to take us down.
Now, is it possible that when he becomes president in a few days' time, Donald Trump can reverse all of this? Can he do that?
He can, but it's not going to be easy. You've got to get everybody, all the countries that voted for it, to then revoke and rescind their votes, and that could take a long time.
Now, here's one of the most amazing new technological inventions you maybe thought you'd never see: a flying ambulance in the Holy Land. This robotically remotely piloted drone is called the Cormorant, and it can speed through the clouds at 115 miles per hour. The aircraft is capable of carrying up to 1,100 pounds, which makes it ideal for extricating civilians from critical situations such as warfare or the explosion of dirty bombs and toxic chemicals. Military or emergency personnel could be simultaneously transported in to deal with dangerous situations. Because it's made with internal rotary blades rather than outer propellers like helicopters, the Cormorant can zoom in and out of urban areas without hitting power lines. The Israeli Urban Aeronautics Company has been developing the $14 million 1.5-ton UAV for 15 years and is hoping its airborne ambulance will take to the skies by 2020.
ご機構日本科学未来館館長毛利守、はい、48人目よろしくお願いします。
はい、おめでとうございます。オトナロイド良かったですね。
実用化されていけばですね、Androidもその中に
Our goal is to promote and to put to use various robots that can be useful in a large range of fields in society.
ロボットとして使われていくんだと思います。
発言や操作を再現。
いやちょっとね、
My dream when I grow older is to have my own TV program. If you hear about a newscaster job, please let me know.
ぜひ声をかけてください。コモロイドニュースの時間です。
And now, Comoroid News. According to the National Weather Agency, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center in Hawaii measured an 8.0 magnitude earthquake around the Aleutian Islands at 3 minutes past 5 Japan time this morning.
初動付近を震源とするマグニチュード 8.0 の巨大地震がありました。
はい、よろしければ以上でフォトセッション。
Curry's an adorable robot that adds a spark of life when you're at home. One of the things about Curry that's really different that we're excited about is that Curry's personality and character are the central thing about all of the design. The technology is amazing, but for us, Curry's personality really leads everything else. Curry is always earnest and helpful and always wants to be part of the family. One of the things that allows Curry to do are things like let you know when the kids have come home from school, follow you around in the morning and play the radio, or every day at 2 o'clock, go by the couch and see if the dog's sleeping on the couch again. Sometimes also, if you just want to know what's happening inside the house, you can ask Curry and check in. You can see everything from his point of view, and if you want to, you can even talk through Curry. Curry can recognize and detect faces, so he knows who's a part of the family and which family member that is.
For the past 10 days, millions of people in the Syrian capital Damascus have been deprived of safe drinking water after water supplies from Wadi Barada and Ain el-Fija springs in northwest of the city were deliberately targeted and damaged, and terrorists contaminated the drinking water with diesel. Now Damascenes have to stand in long lines waiting for their turns to take the needed water for a single day. Meanwhile, the Syrian government is trying to provide the Damascus population with clean water by resorting to alternative resources like wells and distributing water for free, though these resources constitute about 30% of the total water consumption in Damascus.
You can see the situation here. We are trying to adapt to reservoirs of Red Crescents. Sometimes we receive supplies and the residents are cooperative. I've lived here for 4 years. We haven't witnessed such a situation before.
We didn't remain without water. The government used alternative resources such as wells, and it distributed water for free among the people. There were also bottled water. We need more patience, and these hard days will pass.
The terrorists' desperate attack on water resources came a few days after Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, was fully liberated from the grips of Takfiri terrorist groups. The city was the last major urban area controlled by terrorists.
We call for military takeover of the spring and the area to end the suffering. We have kids who need water. Adults can handle this crisis, but kids and elders can't. We can't live without water.
It has been 10 days since foreign-backed militants cut water supplies to millions of the residents of Syrian capital Damascus after taking control of an area holding the city's major water reservoir. The militants are now taking the conflict to a new level, where civilians are being punished for deciding to remain beside the Syrian army in its battle against terrorism. Zahra Derzi, Press TV, Damascus.
Leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution has once again hailed the nation's armed forces for their role in defending holy sites in Syria. Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei was speaking with the families of Iranian army commandos killed in the Arab country. Ayatollah Khamenei said the fallen soldiers are a source of pride not only for Iran's army but for the whole nation. The leader said the Iranian forces have grounded the enemy in Syria. Ayatollah Khamenei added that if Iran's ill-wishers and the puppets of the U.S. and Zionists had not been confronted in Syria, the Iranian forces would have had to fight them inside Iran's territory.
The U.S.-led coalition says it has doubled its military advisors in the Iraqi city of Mosul. The coalition spokesman, Colonel John Dorian, says there are now about 450 coalition advisors in Mosul. In a report to Pentagon, Dorian said the reinforcements are part of a series of measures taken to accelerate the advance of the Iraqi security forces. According to the U.S., the advisors are not involved in direct combat and provide specialized support, such as analysis of intelligence. However, American military forces carry out air and artillery strikes in Iraq and Syria, claiming to be fighting against Daesh. Many civilians have fallen victim to such strikes.
This all happening at about 8:20 this morning. It's an LIRR train coming into Atlantic Terminal Station in Brooklyn. Apparently did not stop, it slowed down, but did not come to a stop until it hit the N block. As N.J. Burkett was reporting there, it slammed into the N block and came off the rails about 10 to 12 feet straight up. We heard from an eyewitness there, Stella Fishdahl, we just spoke with a couple of moments ago. She was one of the people with minor injuries, anywhere from 12 to 36, we're told. N.J. says he sees 2 to 3 dozen people on the platform with minor injuries. As you could see in the video there, some people coming off quite shaken up. Stella Fishdahl describing pandemonium, the scene there as pandemonium.
Throughout the country. Later today, the U.S. House of Representatives is expected to vote against UN Resolution 2334 that condemned Israeli building policies. And a bipartisan coalition of senators has just introduced a similar measure demanding the UN bill be repealed. This is a first opportunity U.S. lawmakers have had to respond to what a joint statement condemns as the stunt pulled by the Obama White House to abstain rather than veto the UN bill last month. Congressional sponsors say the move hurt their ally Israel and made peace in the region even more difficult to achieve. The measure is widely expected to pass. Meanwhile, the bipartisan Senate bill that was just submitted demands 2334 be nullified or fundamentally altered so it's no longer one-sided and anti-Israel.
And more than 150 prisoners have escaped from a jail in the Philippines after it was stormed by gunmen. It happened in the south of the country. About 100 men attacked the building, killing a prison officer and freeing the men. A separatist rebel group is believed to be behind the attack. Well, Dean Bernardo is following the story in Manila. He joins us now live. Hi, Dean. So how many prisoners are still at large? And tell us about the operations underway to recapture them now.
There's an approximately over 150 prisoners that have escaped. Now, these are high-risk prisoners that are very, very critical in a lot of the anti-terrorism operation of the country. The national police, including the armed forces of the Philippines, have joined forces in tracking down some of these so-called terror members. Now, they have been part of some of the operations that involve bombings in the Mindanao Islands in the past, and even through the night they are being hunted down, and hopefully they would be recovered.
Well, Russia is seeking to stage naval drills with the Philippines following President Rodrigo Duterte's decision to downgrade his country's ties with the United States. 2 warships from Russia's Pacific Fleet docked in Manila on Tuesday for a 4-day visit with the goal of taking part in potential bilateral Navy drills. The drills are expected to include showing off weapons and tactics. This as Manila said it was considering Moscow's offer to sell a submarine and drones to the Philippines to develop the military's modernization program. Last October, Duterte's expressed desire to forge stronger defense and economic alliance with Russia and China. Now, the president has time and again threatened to scale back U.S. troop presence in the Philippines.
Debate, I'm Lauren Green. The 115th Congress has just been sworn in, and while Republicans still maintain control of both the House and the Senate, there's something else that's been maintained from the last Congress and many before. According to the annual Pew Forum's Faith on the Hill survey, despite an electorate that's becoming less religious, Congress is still quite faithful, with nearly the same percentage of members who identify as Christian today as there were in the 1960s. Joining us to break down the numbers is Gregory Smith, Associate Research Director of the Pew Center. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you for having me.
What does the survey actually show us? Can you kind of break it down for us? We've got a graphic down for our viewers as well.
Well, as you mentioned, the key takeaway is that the big majority of members of Congress continue to identify themselves as Christians. In fact, 485 of the 535 members of the new Congress describe themselves as Christians, Protestants or Catholics or Mormons. There are 30 Jewish members of the new Congress, there are 3 Buddhists, there are 3 Hindus, there are 2 Muslim members of the new Congress, and just 1 member of the new Congress who describes themselves as religiously unaffiliated, as having no religious preference at all.
And that's very interesting because that number in the general public is about, I don't know, 20% or 15%, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's amazing. If you look back over time, the percentage of adults in the general population who say they have no religion, who identify themselves as atheist or agnostic or as just nothing in particular when it comes to religion, that group is growing very rapidly. In fact, today, as many as 23% of all adults in the United States say they have no religion.